Good morning, distinguished guests of the International Finance Forum. It is my honor and greatest privilege to address this august body today. I'm the founder and president of Global Dynamic Group. It's a pleasure to serve as one of the prominent sponsors of this forum. I want to congratulate all the members of the International Finance Forum for an extremely successful and informative conference. In 2005, Global Dynamic Group was the organizer of the Western China International Economic Summit in Urumqi, Xinjiang, that featured a keynote address by former US President William Jefferson Clinton. We selected Xinjiang because it represents an important region filled with valuable natural resources. Our cooperation with the International Finance Forum is a new step in building relationships in China. As China seeks harmonious development, we hope to serve as a bridge to establish mutually beneficial relationships with long-term partners.
The topic of my address to you today is really very simple to summarize. It is that opening up our economies is good for countries like China and is good for countries like the United Kingdom and other European Western economies. As someone who first came to China about 20 years ago, traveling through Beijing is an extraordinary experience of change. But actually, even more so a couple of days ago when I was down in Dongguan and I saw what was happening there, and I remembered that there's 20 years ago, traveling through that part of China and seeing virtually nothing in place in terms of industrial development. And now, today, there's the most extraordinary development going on both in business and in industry, in leisure. And why has this happened? It's happened because the Chinese leadership have had the vision and the imagination to open their country up. And although we are at a different stage of economic development in the UK, we also have been engaged in a process of opening up over these past years. But I can tell you when that opening up process first began, round about 20 to 30 years ago, it was highly controversial. There were many people who objected, who said this would destroy our way of life, destroy our traditions. But in the end, the people at that time had the imagination and the vision to understand the world was changing and they had to change with it. And I remember a meeting taking place in the municipal government of the north of England when an old man who'd worked all his life, 40 years down in the mines, got to his feet and explained to his local community that even though mining was the only life he understood, he now knew that his children and his grandchildren would have to understand a different way of doing things. And that was a very vivid and powerful moment of change. And actually what's happened across the UK economy over the past 20 years is a continual process of opening up. The reason that London is such a strong financial centre today is precisely because London has been an open financial centre to the world. There are protectionist voices in the United States now, in Europe, elsewhere, people who worry about the rise of China economically and who think the answer to it is to put up barriers. And our task is to persuade people that this is not the answer, that it is the wrong thing to do, and that actually instead of seeing the development of the Chinese economy as a negative, we should see it instead as a positive, benign development for the rest of the world, not merely for China, a development that offers tremendous opportunities if we have the intelligence and the foresight and the vision to seize them. The worst thing that could happen particularly if the economy gets tougher in the United States or Europe. The worst thing that could happen is, in the face of those pressures and a potential downturn in the economy, is if people turn to protectionism as the answer. And what I'm really saying to you today is that over these next few years, we will face a challenge in the West and here in China, that if we believe in opening up and think globalization is essentially a thing that can bring benefits to our people, we are going to have to go out and make the case for it. Politicians, business leaders, and people. But if we do that, then I am optimistic about the future and believe that we can make progress together.
And finally, I really want to thank, from the bottom of my heart, Mr. Tony Blair. It was just a fantastic speech, wonderful exchange. I think it added so much to the International Finance Forum, and I think will really help us in the future. So thank you so much, Mr. Blair.